Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Life Stripes with Kathy and Duke. I want to welcome our very special guest today. His name is Mr. Ian Andre Espinay. Thank you for joining us today, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
For some of you who haven't checked out Ian's Facebook post, I don't know if all of you are even his friends, and if you're not, Ian, is it public? Can everybody see it? Can everyone see your post possibly on Facebook?
Oh, yes, it's on my Facebook and my Instagram. Mm-hmm.
So even if they're not friends with you, they can still see it, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So if you haven't been able to check out Ian's Facebook post, it is a video that he created a couple of days ago in response to the latest murder in the States of Mr. Ahmaud Arbery. And we wanted to have Ian on today just to sort of give us an idea of what was going on in his mind before he made that actual Facebook post and Instagram post, and sort of his feelings as to how all of the stuff that's transpiring in the States, whether it be cops, whether it be other individuals, harming, killing Black people. Ian, welcome.
Thank you.
So can you share with us, how were you feeling when you saw the video? Because you were one of the few people that saw the video who were bold enough to watch the video.
Mm-hmm. So I stumbled onto the video by accident. It came through my WhatsApp, of all places. And I wandered onto it because people are sending out jokes and all sorts of stuff all the time. I wandered into it, and it was actually, it was, to put it lightly, traumatizing. It was very upsetting. It's there's no words that can express the sentiment that I felt, that, you know, like watching that young man lose his life. And ultimately what it resulted in was me just turning on the camera and speaking frankly, I guess. You know, in the post I spoke to the fact that I'm not even sure why people are able to share this post, in as much as you wouldn't be able to share a post of a dog being murdered like that, or an animal. It would, you know, ironically, somebody posted back on my page that Instagram, that they had reported the video, and Instagram had said that it doesn't breach any of their constraints or guidelines.
The video of his murder.
Yeah, ironically. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what somebody posted to my page. You know, which in a nutshell summarizes the sentiment that I had when I made the video, because, you know, and I think I said this in the video. I don't even remember, to tell you the honest truth. As I said, I turned on the camera and I kind of blacked out. But in the event that you had a song and you were rapping and you took it to a radio station and it said, "I'm going to kill a dog," there's no way that they would play it. If you brought them a song and you said that "I'm going to rape somebody," they wouldn't play it. But media allows visuals of Black people being murdered to be played every day. It's not a snuff movie. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, and that, probably in conjunction with this whole COVID thing, was probably enough for me to snap, right? Because it's traumatic, right? So I think that's where the thought process started.
Right. Yeah. You were literally shaking in the video. The voice was quivering. You were extremely emotional. So I think that was clear, that you were traumatized. You literally were traumatized. You looked traumatized. Right?
Yeah, because it's like, you know, I have, and, you know, and we can speak to women and the conversations that we have to have with our young women, but I have a Black boy, and that Black boy is an endangered species. Like, I have to have conversations that other people don't have to have with him at age 11 about walking into a store. If I had him on here right now, I'd be like, "London, what do you do when you walk into a store?" He'd be like, "I put up my bag and I show them that I came in with it." I'm like, "What do you do when you're leaving the store?" And he's like, "Buy a bag, no matter if it's 5 cents or whatever, put the receipt inside the bag and do not open anything until you get home." These are the kind of conversations that we have to have. What happens if you are approached by an authority? What are your rights? You know, it's like, and actually, to tell you the honest truth, I'm probably going to sit down with my mom this week and print. Actually, I'm sitting with some cards, because I'm going to design it tonight, to print cards for our men. You know what I mean? Like, so that when we're in public, we even know what our rights are. Because ironically, my mother being a lawyer, I don't even know what our rights are. Like, if approached by a police officer. You know,
So
do you?
can I just step in there for, because you mentioned something that's really interesting, and it's about our rights.
Mhm,
And we're talking about Ahmaud Arbery here, 25-year-old male, black male,
mhm.
that was gunned down by a 34-year-old white male with his father watching. Now, his father was an ex-cop, an
Yep,
ex-police officer.
yep.
And when we talk about our rights, one of the things I really want to point out that the audience should know is in that state, they have the right to make a citizen's arrest and to stand their ground. Now, we're talking about the USA, the America that everybody has the right to bear arms
In Georgia, right?
in Georgia, or in the US, pretty much
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
most
yeah,
of the
Places.
US,
Georgia,
Yeah,
they can do
right?
it.
yeah. Most
But
places.
these two men saw a young man jogging down the street, and they claimed that, okay, this place is being burglarized. Let's stop this guy because he's a black male. He fits the description. There was no report. There was no report saying that there was any robberies, but they felt that they wanted to stop this
And they
man,
also didn't call the police.
and they didn't call the police, right?
So actually, ironically, they did call the police.
Before or after?
I'm not even
They
sure.
actually called that. They did call the police. They called the police after
Yeah.
they had gunned down the man,
Okay.
right?
Is
And the
is
police
that
officer,
direct
the police
information?
officers came. They gave their side of the story, saying, "Hey, we got reports of robberies. He fit the description. We stopped him. He didn't comply. Struggle happened. He got shot. He got killed."
Mhm.
And I'm just gonna say it frankly, the police were on their side. He's an ex-cop. There's a
Of
bias
course.
there.
Of
They
course.
turned the other cheek. This man was killed on February
Fifth, 25th.
23rd.
Was it
February
23rd?
23rd. It was the
Okay.
23rd. And we're in May. Today is May 10th. And we were talking about this today. And why we're talking about this is because it was just Thursday. It was
Yeah.
just Thursday, May 7th,
Hmm.
that these two white individuals were arrested
Yeah.
and charged with second-degree murder.
And that's only because the video went public.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Known it, they've seen the video. They didn't think that it was necessary to lay charges at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I believe there was a 911 tape where they called in, and that tape is very ironic, but it's also very telling. They were like, the operator is like, "What is he doing?" And the guy's like, "He's running," and she's like, "But what is he doing?"
Right.
He's running. You know what I mean? And it speaks to so many things. It speaks to the fact that, you know, like, and these are all memes and whatever, but they're still truths. We can't
So,
run while black. We can't.
so I'm trying to understand. So then I guess I'm confused with when the call was made while he was running.
I don't know. I think I'm not
We're
sure.
not sure about that. Okay.
So I read the article. The call was made while he was running,
While he was
because
okay.
they were following him in their truck.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was while
and
he was
and
running.
and the dispatch, or the operator, stated, well, did you see him committing a crime? Did you see him trespassing on this property? Did he, you know what I mean? And they said, well, no, right? So there was no crime there, right? But
Yeah.
they still took it upon their own hands to say, okay, we're going to make a citizen's arrest
Take the law
based
in
on what? So it
yeah.
goes back to Ian talking about our rights. Do we even have rights in the U.S.?
Well,
Do we even
well,
have
that
rights?
I guess
As black individuals, do we have
but
rights?
that's the big question though in the US. And then for us living in Canada, you know, I think a lot of us are going to get the argument, yeah, but we don't live in the States, you know? So what's happening in the States is it's not paralleling how it is in Canada. So we are, you know, and I've heard this a lot, we're very reactionary over here in Canada because it is so close to the border. Listen, we are Black people. I have a Black son. Ian, you have a Black son. You know what I mean? Duke, you are a Black. I mean, you guys are Black men. You have Black nephews and family members and stuff. So of course, it's going to hit very close to anybody who's Black. You know, that's just the nature of this particular beast. But for people who would say that this is happening in the States, it's not happening like that in Canada. What do you guys say to that?
I say, for me, Black lives matter everywhere, right? So it doesn't matter if I'm in Canada or the States, or if I'm in Europe. If there's a social injustice being done to our Black race, then we all need to band together and talk about it.
So I mean, the States is predicated on the idea, like going back to to slavery, that we're 3/5 of a man anyway.
Right.
which is why we didn't have the right to vote, because we weren't human beings, we were a shadow. Um, is it happening in the States only? No, it's happening in the States, it's happening in Canada. It's happening at the same rate that it's been happening, if not um, a mildly reduced rate, but we're seeing more of it now because we're lucky enough to have cameras.
Yeah.
And the cameras haven't stopped it from happening. It's still happening. It's happened in Markham in March. Like it happened,
Mhm.
you know, like the reason that I've had to have the conversation with my son is because a young man, an 11-year-old, was arrested without his parents in Unionville. You know what I mean? So is it at the level that it is in the States in Canada? No, it's not. Canada has its own form of like closet racism
Mhm.
garbage, which which you can see in the workforce. If you guys have employment, when you know, like down to my girl who has an African name, who when she applies for a job has to use Canadian names, or like glass ceilings, or going for a job and them saying that you're overqualified, these kind of foolishness, right? And you know, but there is, our police are remarkably different, and Canada is remarkably different, but we have to keep in mind that we follow the trends of the States as well, right? Whether it be hip hop or culture or whatever
Yeah.
else it is, right? I last year, May 2/4 long weekend coming into right now, I didn't throw my party at Cube because a young man was murdered in front of Cube nightclub on Queen Street in broad daylight.
Yeah.
So, you know, gang culture, all of these things that we emulate, they are here, you know what I mean? Not at the same level as they are in the States, but to some extent, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, I think for everybody watching, we all recognize that it's not just injustices that are done to us as Black people. It's what we do to each other too. We're very cognizant of this, are we not? Right? And we
Yeah.
all, as grown people sitting here right now, it's ridiculous. And like you said, Ian, a lot of people emulating how they are in the States. You know, there's a lot of struggle. We know that. And I think a lot of these rappers from back in the day to now, they're speaking about what they believe is real and what is their truth.
Mhm.
And I think for us in Canada, maybe it's like that. I don't know. I don't think to the extent, but yet here our young boys want to be tough, want to be bad, want to be whatever. And it's unfortunate because I think if we as Black people can't come together, you know, whether it be our youth, the older people speaking to and the youth actually listening, I don't even know what it's going to take. And I know that there are a lot of organizations that really, really try really, really hard. And our youth, there's something missing. There's definitely something missing. And so when things like this happen to us,
Mhm.
you know, when we are getting murdered by other races, I have to say that, it's we are so much more angry. But I guess my next question to you is, shouldn't we be just as angry when it's happening within? Do you see where I'm going with that? Like we
Yeah,
get like fit to be tied, and I'm playing devil's advocate here. Okay,
that's
so
okay. That's okay.
you know, I'm
So
trying
one
to
of
make sure every
yeah,
angle is
yeah. So one of my issues with the Black community is that we have to be honest. We
Mhm.
can't have mothers on television crying about their son being so good and he was murdered, when their sons are doing a bunch of crap. But we don't have the same communal mentality that our parents came to this country with in
yeah.
the 60s and
I
70s,
agree.
where Kathy and I go way back. We went to high school together. We couldn't be playing the ass on the bus because somebody's mother would see us, and by the time that we got home, our parents would know,
Yeah.
right? If not Kathy in particular, but if Kathy's mother saw me on the bus swearing,
Mm-hmm.
right, she would grab me up, and by the time that I got home, I'd get in trouble again.
Yeah.
We, as a generation, have dropped the ball in terms of community. My children don't know Kathy's children, don't know Junior's children, don't know Steve's children, and we live up the street.
Yeah.
And because we didn't have the need for the creation of organizations because we were so alone, we have become educated and moved to Ajax and moved to Markham and moved to stayed in Scarborough or whatever, and we're very separated, and we don't even necessarily think that we're in a struggle. So we're like, yeah, we made it. Like, we have homes and we have cars and we have education and we have, what I mean? So I think that's one thing. And I think number two, violence in the Black community and anger against being killed, and you're at 28 minutes, by the way, are not mutually exclusive, right? You can be angry about the things that are the atrocities that are being committed outside the community while still being angered by the things that are happening inside the community.
Absolutely.
But we have to take responsibility internally, as you're saying, you know what I mean? Like, because that child who's jumping on the couch in the barber shop, when I go to tell him don't jump on the couch, and his
Right.
mother says don't talk to my son, right?
Yeah.
That's the same kid who's doing something years later that she can't control. That's
Agreed.
years and years later is doing things, and now none of us can control him. And when
Agreed.
you can't control him, the police are going to control him, and then we're going to be upset that the police have controlled him. But that does not
Doesn't
negate
Right.
the
Yeah.
fact that we are guilty until proven innocent. You could
Yeah.
be running down the street.
Yeah.
He's running. What's he running from? Why is he running?
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
he's running because he's trying to get his steps in. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like
Mhm.
the two things are not mutually exclusive, in my opinion. But I do think that there is an issue in our community where we're not honest with ourselves, where people are on TV crying about, oh, my boy, he was such a good boy. And I'm like, no, he wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Because,
Yeah.
and you dropped the ball because my mother was all up inside my room going through everything. I couldn't come through the door with a baseball cap that she didn't know and her not say, whose is that? Take it back.
Right. And the whole get out of my room. I'm like, get out of my children try that with me. And I'm like, what? You have a room?
Yeah.
My dad took one of those things, and he took a hammer and he went like this, and he knocked the hinges off my door.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right? And took the door off because I don't pay rent in the house.
Right.
So I don't have a room and I don't have a right to privacy. And our children have phones and we don't have the phone codes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a part of the problem too here, guys, is that we really have to solve is the image that the media also depicts of Black people. A lot of the issues come from fear. When you place in the media that Black people only gang bang, we only rob, steal, listen to rap music, and rap music makes us violent and stuff like that, you'll have other races that look at us and fear us. I remember a couple of summers ago, I went down to Grand Bend, Ontario. That's up north. Beautiful place, has a nice little, I think it's Lake Huron, and when you go up there, you think you're in Miami. That's how nice and clear the water is. So if you've never been there, go check it out. But I remember walking to back to the hotel that I was staying at, and I was walking behind a white couple, and when they looked back and saw me walking behind them, they literally stopped in their tracks to let me walk ahead of them because there was a fear that they had of me, right? And I think that, and I really feel that stems from a lot of the bad press that we get in the media about who we are as people and human beings. So I do agree with you, Ian, that yes, parents need to stop coming on TV and crying about their kids that are into bad things and they do bad things. Because I mean, if you live by the gun, you're going to die by the gun. If you're doing those things, yes, you should be caught, punished, and to the extent of the law for your crimes. But a lot of the problems that we have and why Black youth are being shot down by police officers, why they're being shot down by, radical and racist white males and their kids, is because that they've taught their kids to not like Black people, and their mindset has to change. Also, the media that depicts us as bad people has to change, and I think that's where we really need to step up our game. We need to get into these higher positions and in government and try to make some of these changes ourselves, because if we don't get there, it's not going to stop, and we're going to be talking about this until we're blue in the face.
Yeah, so I think there's two things there. I think that those racists are, so their thought processes are predicated on ideas over hundreds of years. I think that the media definitely plays a role in villainizing Black males and Black people as a whole, Black women as sexual objects, etc. Black males as violent, etc. But we need to take a role in writing our own narratives as well.
That's
so
right.
When I speak to Black people, sometimes they say, I don't represent Black people, I just represent myself. And you hear things like, there's you see Kathy's run into me at auditions with my son for television shows. I'm not going to let him play 50 Cent, right, in a biopic, because I don't want to further depict the stereotypical images that are portrayed of us in the media, right? Because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So we have to play a role in telling our stories, and that is a part of a larger thing that has to happen in our community. Ironically, I'm wearing this sweatshirt that Kathy would know from like 27 years ago. And when I created that clothing line when we were teenagers, it was predicated. I don't know where the logo is, but the logo has a book and a star, right? And the leaves of that book are economics, politics, family, community, health and wellness. Like, these are the things. We don't have political power. We don't have economic power. You couldn't shoot anyone else from any community. I'm not going to pinpoint a community because that's troublesome. And we're not playing Oppression Olympics. But you couldn't shoot somebody from another community and that community not lock it down. Say, you know what, like, we are boycotting this, or we are mobilizing this. We lack, and again, our generation, by and large, has dropped the ball on leadership. We were busy being educated and doing other things, but we did not mobilize in the way that the Black Action Defense Committee did, or that the BBPA did, the Black Business and Professional Association did, and we don't have many. We obviously do, but we don't have as many organizations and touch points where we can say, this is who we go to, this is leadership, this is whatever the case is, right? But it's not too late, right?
No,
but it starts with a mentality. It starts with, where do you spend your money? Right? Where do you, like, how do you vote? Do you vote? Right? Do you vote? It's you know, like, I'm when I get off the phone, I'm working on something called Sunday School, where we talk about all of the things that we don't know about. We don't know about taxation. We don't know about life insurance. We don't know about wills and estates. We don't know about purchasing property. We don't know about what happens when you defer your mortgage. We don't know about going vegan. We don't know about all of these things, right? And these things are going to be critical to us changing everything. You know what I mean? And, you know, as sad as it may sound, like, the only thing that is respected are these things. Is your economic power, is your political power. And we have to start by taking the 11-year-olds like my son and training them like Mitzi Hunter up through the Liberal Party and up through the political parties, the Scarborough Rouge River Liberals, or the whoever NDPs or whatever, and creating leadership. Jill Andrew, who I taught at Scarborough Black Education Organization, is now an NDP member, right? So, you know, like, we have to cultivate these energies, or else we're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I absolutely agree. Ian, very, very well said. Very well said.
I agree. We need more leadership. We need more Black youth being more educated. And I'm not saying that they're not going to school, but once you go to school, you got to do something with that knowledge, and uplift yourself and uplift your fellow peers and your kids after, and the kids after that, because we really have to step up. And I don't think that as a community we have all banded together well enough to make a change yet, and that has to change.
And like a point, we are all leaders. Because, you know, like, I went to Dudley Laws's funeral, and the preacher said something that resonated with me forever. He said, political leaders, he said, good afternoon, political leaders, members of the community, esteemed members, whatever, and leaders of your respective communities. So barbers used to be leaders, right? When you sit down in the chair, when you come into the store, they're like, take off your hat. Drug dealers used to be leaders. They were like, whether you like it or not, there were rules in the street. Right?
People respected them.
You know, teachers, Lennox Farrell at Lieberman with us, Mrs. Bailey, right? Teachers were leaders. You know, and so there's an obligation. I was on a reunion call for Each One Teach One the other day, which was like back in the day. There was this organization that I was a part of, and each one, like I was mentored by Ed Gow. Below me was Juan Lucas. You know what I mean? And like everybody has an obligation to go back, right, and hand something back to somebody behind them.
Agreed.
And if we all did a little bit, you know what I mean? Like in this, like, you know, the Jamaican side of my Trinmacan heritage, every mickle kind of makes a muckle, right? So
Right.
if everybody gave $1 and there's 800,000 of us in Toronto, we could have the beginnings of a community center.
Yeah.
But collectively, we don't have that mentality. If
We have the I don't trust my neighbor.
yes, right? Like if
Yeah.
I did it today and you see me in an E-class,
Yeah.
you're like, boy, you're not teeth to money.
Right.
You're not teeth to money, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, like a lot of the time these days when I do things, like I just sidestep these organizations and whatever and just do what I'm doing and don't tell anybody until it's done.
Right.
Because again, 400 years, we have a different heritage than they do in the States, but 400 years of mental slavery has this impact that we look at our brothers and sisters and say, yo, I'm not going to Ian's parties, boy. You see that car I'm gonna drive? Like, I bought that. And I was like, but you don't say that when you go to McDonald's.
No.
Right.
You don't say, you say, Ian's doing 2 parties on Caravana Sunday. Boy, I get greedy. You don't say that when other, you know, like I went to U of T Scarborough when different, I don't want to name anybody's company, but when a certain company was being created,
Yeah.
and the sister went to Windsor to open the second location. And I said, oh, I'd love to buy a franchise. And they were like, yeah, we're keeping it in the family.
Oh my.
You know what I mean? So like, you know, like we don't have, you know, like I remember a very successful promoter outside of our community came up to me at my birthday party one year and he said, you know, there's a fundamental difference between Black people and I could have been offended by it, but you have to sometimes stop and listen to the messages behind it.
You got to take it in.
You know,
Yeah.
he said, you do a party and it has 1,500 people like this, and people will come over and say, yo, boy, yeah, do good. Buy me a drink, nah. But in my community, people would come over and say, you're doing well. Let me buy you a drink. How can we collaborate and work together? And that collective consciousness is something that not like completely, but by and large is missing. It's a consciousness that we have to develop in our people.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
How do you, so I guess the bigger question is then how do we go about cultivating that? That's always been the question, you know?
I think that back to my point about leadership, like everybody is a leader. If you like, and this is my approach to business, like I'm a serial entrepreneur. If you see something in the market that's not representing you, or you see, like you don't see something in the market rather that represents you, then you have an obligation to create it. If you see the food bank doesn't have food or sanitary, like, or whatever, PPE, and you want to help them, right? You start with your little circle, right? Like, I don't know if I watched too much Knight Rider when I was a kid and every one man can make a difference. But I'm like, at Christmas, like, I was just like, you know, like Kathy would know, like at numerous points in my life, I've just seen something and been like, I can't watch this.
Yeah.
Like, Barbuda is sinking like underwater and people are like, prayer is not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like prayer alone, like my grandmother said, like God helps those who help themselves.
Yeah.
Prayer alone is not going to do it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so and I mean, this is not rocket science. This is, if you're on a beach and one person starts dancing, other people will laugh. And then when one person goes and dances too,
Yeah.
4 people, and then all of a sudden you have a flash mob.
Yeah.
Right? It's not rocket science. It's just like, you don't create a movement. You are passionate about something, you do something, and somebody will feel what you're doing and follow. You know what I mean?
We're all energy, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too late for the older generation like myself. But I think, to answer your question, Kathy, I think we really have to focus on the youth. I think the youth have to be the ones that pick up that torch and band everybody together, because when you're younger, you're able to mold them into the image that you want to mold them in, right? With the things that Ian was talking about, is, you know, I've gone through that too, where, you know, I've been doing things and, you know, my friends are looking at me like, yo, how you doing that? And they're not trying to help me. They're looking at me in a bad-minded way because, you know, we have that grudgeful kind of mentality, again, based due to slavery, man, that slave mentality. So we really got to do it with the youth. And I think that's going to be the way that we crack that code. You know what I mean?
And you need to be like fearless and like relentless. Like, it's like, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, you know, everybody's going live and they're doing these podcasts and they're podcasting for 11 people. And I was like, well, a journey of a million, like if I want to lose this weight, a year from now, I'll be happy that I like started with a 1 pound weight. Right. So it's like, you know, if you believe in something, you have to do it. You know what I mean? There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Everybody's scared.
I think that one of the bigger things also is that, guys, you know, we're all born with gifts, and I think we tend to forget that. And so, sorry if you can hear my children having time in the background. Sorry.
And we got like a minute left, so we gotta.
Okay. So I just wanted to say also that, you know, we're all born with gifts, and I think that if we all really focused on what our gifts were, and I know our parents came here, and a lot of us are first generation Canadians, so the mentality was just get a job, guys. You got to make your money, you know, have your family and stuff. They didn't understand the whole entrepreneurship here and us being really creative in all the things that we want to do and all the things that we can do because of what's available. And I think that as long as within our household now at this critical point, reset year 2020, start to focus on what our gifts are and find other people with the same mindset as you. That's when the movements can start to really happen. But with everybody sort of dimming their light, dimming their light, because I don't know, they're trying to keep up with whoever, whatever, you know, running into too much debt to keep up with whoever, whatever, whatever nonsense it is that we as a community have been doing, you know, just to speak to what these guys are saying is that we have to take care of ourselves. And that's when people will start to take us seriously. I mean, anybody who looks at us and wants to kill us because we are born Black, I have no words for people like that, just as I'm sure as you guys don't either, you know, but this is a reality that we all have to face. It, you know, I hate to want to say that Ian might be right when he says we might be an endangered species. There's a lot of mixing going on, so we might have a fighting chance, but I'm just saying, you know, but it's bad.
To be honest, Kathy, it doesn't matter if you mix, because once you mix, you're still Black.
But that's my point. Right? Is we may,
they ain't looking at your kids like they white. Sorry.
No. That's what I'm saying. We may not be an endangered species because we are mixing so much, right? But
I don't know about that one.
At the end of the day, I really think it's about mindset. And as long as we all sort of make the decision to do better and bring people along with us, I think that's the best that we can do. You know, keep everybody safe, protect ourselves, keep the conversations going, whether you are Black, not Black, have the conversations going in your house. You know things are wrong. You know that there's injustices being done. And as long as you're communicating with the people in your house, hopefully, you know, by the time we all get out on the roads again, people's minds will change. We are all people. We are all, you know, we all bleed the same blood. It is what it is. And to be judged because of the color of our skin, you got to know that's wrong. Just wrong.
Anyway. Yeah, definitely.
I wish, and I hope, and I think that was mentioned in my my Instagram post. I hope that our peers and friends, you know, Black people are very merciful, and Black women especially fight for everybody. If you're on a bus and they see somebody being accosted, or if you watch that television show, What Would You Do? It's always a Black woman who jumps in and defends an old person, or jumps in and defends whomever. This is our travesty. But it's, you know, as you started saying at the beginning of the show, an injustice against anybody is an injustice against all. So I would hope that our allies and people who have an issue with these kind of things step up and say something. I know that a lot of the time, because of the society that we live in, people are afraid to voice opinions for the, you know, because dissent always, you know, especially now when everybody's a keyboard warrior, but, you know, like, it's very important that non-Black people and Black people alike, but our Asian friends, our Indian friends, our white friends, step up and say something as well. Because that's the only way that we're going to change everybody's mentality. Because, you know, like Duke said, like I have an old friend, and the first time I met him, he said, "Oh, wow, you're really eloquent for a Black person." And my friend wanted to strangle him to death. And I was like, "No, why do you say that?" And he's like, "Well, I grew up in I don't know what it is, Vaughn or whatever it is, and he didn't grow up with many black people, and so his understanding of black people came from a character on BET named Zeta or something, who
Wow.
used to speak a certain way, and 50 Cent and people who wear their hats like this and whatever the case may be. And you can wear your hat like that. There's nothing wrong with wearing your hat like that. And but you can wear your hat like that and be eloquent as well. And so his understanding is limited, right? His understanding is limited, but now that he's spoken to me as a completely different mentality, right? So interaction, having conversations with people, tolerance, like when somebody says something, don't just jump. Because again, we live in a time where like everything is construed. You know what I mean? Like, but that notwithstanding, there are things that are blatantly, so listen to us when we say them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we too have to do a role like in governing ourselves, ensuring that people are not using the N-word, and then we're mad when they use the N-word because we're using the N-word. You know what I mean? Like these kind of things, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's not something that comes today, but as I said, like young people for war and old people for guidance. You know what I mean? For counsel. And like if we work on the kids today, maybe we can make a change in the world tomorrow.
Agreed.
I agree with that 100%. We got to really definitely work on those kids.
Yeah.
Starts with the kids, man. It starts with the youth. It's not too late for us, but I mean,
no, definitely. Like as I said, like young people for war and young and old people for counsel.
Yeah.
And so if we put the infrastructures in place and we say, okay, we're going to, I don't know, whatever it is, if you play basketball, get a permit for a school and start a basketball program, and maybe you're on the board of directors, and maybe you start to find these 20-year-olds who want all of these things. There's students who are going to teachers college who need to help kids. There's parents who don't have money for Sylvan, right? There are kids who need, like Kathy's Bajan, right?
Yep.
I'm Trini and Jamaican. My dad is one of the last mass builders, original mass builders. Our arts are crafts as well. Our summer camps could teach roti making. I don't know, right? Like our mass making, or Dwayne Morgan could teach poetry, or Tamla Matthews could teach dance. We had the Scarborough Caribbean Dance Ensemble and the Scarborough Caribbean sports clubs and all of these things when we were growing up. We don't have those touch points for our kids now, and we have to like stop. And this is everything. This is Carabana. We have to stop going to other people asking with our hands out for them to do things. Like we can't, like, yes, they should be teaching Black history in school, but we also have an obligation to teach Black history in our homes. And not everybody is Black history guy, but maybe it just starts with watching Madam C.J. Walker documentary with your kids, right? Like whatever level you are on, do it at the level that you're on. It doesn't matter, like just the little, you know what I mean? We're not all the greatest parents. I'm not. You know what I mean?
Kevin Hart actually has a special on Black History Month.
A cartoon special, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like whatever level it is that, you know what I mean? And like, like Fresh Prince to hip hop, like you introduce people to, like, that's how I got into hip hop with my parents, because I wasn't allowed to listen to it. I was like, no, listen to this. Parents just don't understand. They're like, oh, that's funny, right?
Yeah.
Introduce it at the level that people can understand it, right? Do it at the level that you know. That's all that can be asked of you. Nobody's asking for everybody to be Marcus Garvey or Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. Not everybody is a charismatic leader, but you can do things at the level that you're at.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Agreed. And hopefully with all the good that we are doing, people will stop the madness on the road that we have no control over. It needs
well, maybe they'll stop killing us. How about that?
Hey, see, I'm trying
because this episode is about
in the way I'm saying
injustice.
It, yes, right? There's no real way to say it other than
stop killing Black people. How about that?
Yeah, it's
killing anybody, everybody.
No, stop killing Black people. You know what
yes,
I mean? You gotta talk to them police officers. You gotta talk to them racist white men in the States and in Canada. Stop killing us Black people.
Yeah, like
that's how we're going down.
Unfortunately, Kathy, like it's like my mother could be sick, and I'm like, my mother is dying, and you're like, yeah, but my mother's dying too. Yeah. That's not the conversation that we're having. We're like, we are having a conversation specifically about killing Black people.
I know.
It is very simple.
Exactly.
Stop
So don't sugarcoat
killing
it,
us.
Kathy, because you
Stop.
like to sugarcoat.
I'm not sugar. Yes.
They killing us.
Y'all
They're
know.
killing us. Stop
And you
killing
got
us.
and you got kids. Yes, they
Yeah.
biracial, but they Black. At the end of the day,
Children
white
are Black.
people look at them kids as Black.
Yeah,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
Let's be straight. Let's
My
not
heart-
sugarcoat nothing here.
Oh, God, as a mother, it breaks just the thought, you know?
yeah, and that's why my voice was shaking in the video, because I was angered, and we should be angered. Like, Black people should be at the point where we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We should be angry, and there's no more time. People, oh, you're militant. There's no more time for saying, like, when somebody's like pushing you in the head all the time, and
Yeah.
you're telling them stop it.
Yeah.
There comes a point where you just have to say, I don't stop it. Like, where you like where and people are like, oh, you're angry. Yes, I'm angry.
Yeah.
Killing Black males. Look at New York. People are getting tackled on the street for not wearing a mask.
I watched that video of Ahmed being killed, and I watched the video of the press, the reporter speaking to his mother, and his mother wasn't super angry. She wanted justice done, and a friend asked me, she's like, why was his mom angry? And I said, and this is my humble opinion, because Black males have been killed so much in the U.S. that it's like the parents are desensitized now. It's a normal thing.
Oh,
It's regular.
Get desensitized, but
Yes, it is.
It is.
We're desensitized.
Because think about it, Kathy. When Kaepernick kneeled down for the national anthem to support social injustice, that got more media press than Arbery being killed. The only reason why we were talking about this today is because it was on social media. Else it would have been swept under the rug. Those guys will be in their beds right now counting sheep.
Yeah.
Living their life, probably just finished eating their steak dinner.
Yeah, there's a meme that says, like, remember, they're not being indicted because they saw the video. They're being indicted because we saw the video.
Exactly.
And so how many times did we not see the video?
Yeah.
That's the question that needs to be asked. How many times does this happen and we don't see the video?
Exactly.
Right? So yes,
remember,
we're angry.
this video was only leaked because the person that recorded it thought
it was going to get them off.
Exactly.
It was going to do them a favor. I could not believe that one.
Exactly.
I was like, to justify their actions, you released the okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we can talk about Black people banding together and us teaching the kids and all that stuff, but we really got to hit the target here, where laws have to be changed. White males and white families need to start looking at Black people as human beings.
People need to be convicted for kill. Like, you couldn't, like, again, I get back to, like, the point that angers me the most. You couldn't kill a dog like that in the street.
Right.
Do you understand what would happen if you shot a dog?
Oh, you would have went to jail. Come on.
There would be no question.
Look what happened to Michael Vick.
There's no question. We have less rights, less, like, we're thought of as less than a dog in the United States, and often here.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So that's what needs to change.
Yeah, point blank, period.
We need to get into powers. We need to get into to Parliament. We need to get into the Senate in the States. We need to get in all these higher positions so we can make that change. Right?
Which means we
don't have a strong enough voice.
Money to fund these things. We need more doctors. We need more lawyers. We need more accountants, more professionals, more all of those things.
And we have them, but we have to spend our money with them too, right?
That's right.
Exactly.
Like, it's collective economics. It's, you know what I mean? It's a mentality. It's like, even when you go into athletes world, when you like look any store that you go into, from the brick to wherever, if they're on commission, other communities look for their kinfolk to spend the money with.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not anti-white. It's pro-Black, right? Yeah. It's like, I don't have anything against anybody.
Right.
Right? I don't have anything against anybody.
Right.
But we have an obligation to fix the issues that we have in our own homes.
Exactly.
Right? Charity begins at home, and so does fixing our problems.
I agree.
That's notwithstanding, stop shooting us.
Yeah.
right? Those things are not mutually exclusive. They're like, we have some things that we have to deal with, but that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I'm afraid to go out late at night.
Exactly.
That doesn't have anything to do with that,
Yeah.
right? What are the mental, like, how many years do we lose? How, like, my mother, I haven't lived in my mother's house for 20 years.
Yeah.
She worries every time she sees something on the news.
Yeah. I know.
Right? What is the impact on our hearts? What's the impact on our lives, on our lifespan from
Stress,
these micro and macro aggressions?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, man.
Wow.
Well, thank you, Ian, for
thank you
time with us today.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
We could do a part 2.
Yeah, this is not something that you can solve overnight. I mean, I think we've been trying to solve this for the past, 60, 70 years, 100 years, more?
I mean, it's it won't be solved overnight, man. We've been
Not
brainwashed and conditioned to hate each other, hate ourselves and hate each other.
Yeah.
So,
You
because
gotta break the
we hear
bonds.
it all the time. I mean, Americans are loyal to America. They're Americans. They love the US of A. In Canada, Jamaicans love Jamaicans, Bajans love Bajans, Trinis love Trinis. Like, there's always that friction. Even though we do
and
go to
Africans,
Caravana together, but it's like,
It's
my
fun.
island's better than yours, or
It's fun though.
Trinis don't like Jamaicans, Guyanese don't like Trinidadians. Like, we have that segregation still to this day.
But it's fun. We keep it fun.
Say it's fun.
At the end of the day, it's one love. We know that.
No. We say it's fun, but is it really one love?
Yeah, it is. Look at, I'm sitting here talking to you guys, ain't I?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the same conversations happen. I know we're joking, right? But I think maybe the same conversations happen internally in homes that happen, like, outside of our community about us, and inside of our community about other people often as well, right? Those things are, those cracks are the reason that, like we talked about Lennox Farrell, that generation created ACSA, African Caribbean Students Association at U of T.
Yeah.
By the time that I got to U of T, ACSA was there. 4 years later, they were arguing, I'm not African, I'm Caribbean.
Right.
Cool. So they split the organization.
Yeah.
They say it was 2,000 people. Now it's 1,000 Caribbean and 1,000 Africans.
There you go.
Now the Africans are like, I'm not Nigerian, I'm Ghanaian. Split.
So now you have different sides.
Now the Caribbean ones are like, I'm not this, I'm Trini, I'm Jamaican. Until they split up until they were all de-ratified, because they don't have a large enough population to sustain them. So it's like, these stupid things are the reason that we can't get ahead. It's the reason that, like, the Black focused school, we will argue about, is it Black history or is it African history, or is it, do we want our children to be excellent? Do we agree?
Yeah.
Do we want our children to be polite? Do we want them to be respectful? Let's start with these core values that we all agree on, and then we can figure out and talk about Caribbean, African, Bajan, Trini, Jamaican history. We can talk about these things, but we have to start with the tenets that we all agree on, which are the core values. This is not rocket science. It's a mantra that you create when you create any company, right? Like, you create a mantra and a whatever the other one's called. I can't remember right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a vision or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and what do we agree on for our collective vision?
Right.
Start with that and go onward from there.
Yeah.
Well said, sir. Well said.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Well, this has been another episode of Life Stripes with Kathy and Duke. Guys, if you like what you saw, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.